fracture, and looking at those symbols on the wreckage, I realized that, hey, we didn't write this, and I wonder where did it come from?
Mm-hmm.
And but I tell you, from that moment on, from that day on, I realized that we're not alone in the universe. That there's other civilizations out there. Obviously, some more advanced than us.
Mm-hmm.
And I just would like to know where they come from. And my personal feeling is this was just a probe, a scientific probe of some sort that was designed to gain information from a rather primitive civilization like us. And obviously, they don't mean us any harm. If they did, we wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say that this incident changed your life?
Well, what it did, it made me very interested in astronomy and cosmology, because I realized that there are other habitable planets out there. And as a matter of fact, some of the telescope images from the Hubble scope are very suggestive of planetary systems. And one of these days, we'll be finding Earth-like planets, with atmosphere that has evidence of a life form, included in it.
And do you think then the government will start to reconsider their cover-up and secrecy, or do you think that they're still going to wait, a couple hundred years by the time we can get a manned mission out that far?
Well, who knows? I wish I knew, but as far as these other civilizations making direct contact with us, I think they're probably holding back themselves too, because we tend to shoot first and ask questions later.
Right.
And I think we might pose more of a danger to them than they do to us.
Yeah.
But again, I have no idea. I think it's why the government is keeping it secret, because I think we're intelligent enough and savvy enough to understand that we're not the only life forms in this whole universe.
I agree with you, but it's weird because the government still doesn't think that we're intelligent enough to handle it. I mean, if all of this is true, and yes, there's life visiting our planet, why don't they just come out and tell us? I mean,
I think NASA conducted a survey one time about what will be the reaction, not if but when they make the big announcement, and by and large, people would accept it as well, why not? Because we're sending probes to other planets ourselves,
mm-hmm.
although still in our own solar system.
Do you think
if we're doing it to others are obviously doing it too? I don't think the outcome of the survey was that the only people who would be really perturbed by this would be all people who are really on the right wing fringe of religions.
This topic comes up a lot, and in defense of that, I think that a lot of people would really accept such an acknowledgement, but then you would have those select groups of people like the Heaven's Gate cult exactly. I mean, you've got a lot of little sects and cults out there that are like that. Let me ask your opinion on that. We're approaching the bottom of the hour, but real quickly, how does that make you feel when you've got people that do things like that?
Well, it takes all kinds, and I don't know what their motives were, why they did that, but you have cults, and I just I don't even think about those people. They're just a small segment of our civilization, and they can harm themselves, but I don't think they represent any problems for us.
Yeah, well, good for you. That's a good viewpoint to have. The Roswell Legacy, the untold story of the first military officer at the 1947 crash site. It is hot off the presses, and it is available, I'm sure, on Amazon.com and many different ways. You'll also have a link right there at blackvaultradio.com. If that's how you're listening to this broadcast, just go ahead and click on that link to buy this book. Don't miss out. More with Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr. when we return to the Black Vault Radio. Stay tuned. This is an exciting show. And welcome back to the Black Vault Radio. I am your host, John Greenwald Jr. My guest, the author of the Roswell Legacy, Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr., son of Jesse Marcel, the first military officer at the Roswell crash site. Dr. Marcel, it's been an exciting hour so far, flying by, already past the bottom of the hour here on the Black Vault Radio. It's a pleasure to have you on. Now, we were talking a little bit about the human reaction to an acknowledgement of this, not only the Roswell case, but also just life in the universe if the government were to come clean. How do you think the human civilization, or how would you think that the human civilization would change overall with such an acknowledgement?
Well, I would think that it would tend to draw us together. I think President Reagan gave a speech to the United Nations to that effect, like, what about threats from outer space? Wouldn't that not bring us together and make us forget our own differences? And again, I think that it would tend to make us more unified, realizing that we kind of stick together here, stop fighting amongst ourselves so much.
Interesting. Now, did your father feel that way too? I mean, unfortunately, he passed away. We haven't mentioned that on the program. When did he pass away?
In 1986.
In 1986. How did he feel about this cover-up? What was his viewpoint on it? Did he want everything to be out and in the general knowledge?
Well, I think so, but, I never really discussed it with him because I was going from the house by the time he started talking about it himself. And as a matter of fact, like I said, Stan Friedman is one who first interviewed him. And so again, it's kind of a moot subject with us. When I was home with the family, we just didn't discuss this. It was a kind of a taboo subject. How
did your mom feel about it?
Well, she was the quiet Southern housewife, and she didn't talk about that much either. I guess some of the closest way we came to this, sometimes in grocery checkout counter, you have these sensational tabloid papers that talk about Venus abductions and things like that, and we kind of look at each other and we kind of said, yeah, we know the real truth about these things.
And really, let me ask you, what is that truth? I know that you are obviously convinced that this was alien technology.
Yeah.
But where do you think do you have an idea of where you think they're coming from, or why they're here, or what their intention is? I mean, have you thought about that before?
Well, I'd like to know where they do come from. Just how far away is their planetary system? But again, I think it's just like a scientific probe. They're just scientifically curious, which they would be like about other civilizations, and I think that's what this is all about.
Would you ever want to make contact, so to speak, with another civilization?
I personally would, yes, because I'd like to find out how do they do that. What kind of science do they have that we don't have, that they can travel interstellar distances? We have theoretical ways of doing that, with warp drives and so forth and so on, but it would require so much energy that we can't do that. But I guess proof of the principle is there, but it takes engineering, and I'd just like to know what kind of engineering that they developed that would allow them to do this.
And, that's a very interesting answer, one definitely coming from a military pilot. We haven't talked about this, but you have 225 combat hours in a Black Hawk helicopter. You really are, after reading your biography, a war hero, going back to Operation Iraqi Freedom in September of 2004, and this was after you retired from the military. Let me have you back that story up a little bit and switch gears a little bit from the Roswell story. But tell me about your life. How did you get into the military? What made you get into the military? And give me a little bit of your background there.
Okay, well, it's a long story. When I graduated medical school and an internship, I joined the Navy. And I spent several years in the Navy. As a matter of fact, I took my specialty training at the Naval Hospital in San Diego. And after I finished the payback time for that, I got out and I moved to Montana and joined the Army National Guard, the Montana National Guard up here. And I became a flight surgeon, and at that time they used to send flight surgeons through flight school at Fort Rucker to learn to fly helicopters. So I spent the next bunch of years in the Army National Guard and retired in 1996 when I was 60 years old. And to my surprise, I was called back in for Operation Iraqi Freedom back in 2004.
That's amazing. How long were you over there?
I was over there for 13 months.
I remember we didn't know each other at the time. We later met in Roswell. I'm not sure if you remember, but finally had the pleasure to meet you in person at the Roswell Museum. But I remember that press release, or not press release, but the emails that were forwarding around that you had gone over, and I thought that was amazing. We were all, worried